Welcome to the BigMx radio podcast, brought to you by Racetech. Racetech Gold Valves, basically a revalve in a box. Don't believe me? Call them up, mention BigMx Radio, and you can save. This episode is also brought to you by SKDA Graphics. Honestly, look on the internet, tip to tail, back to front. You're not going to find a better looking kit on a higher quality piece of vinyl, and your bike's going to be looking good. You'll be turning heads with both your lap times and beautiful looking motorcycle. I'm your host, Brad Gebhart. With me on the line, someone that I've been trying to get a podcast going with for quite some time. He's pretty elusive, but also he's on the other side of the world, so the time zones don't always match up. He's eating breakfast. I'm digesting lunch. So he's actually living in the future right now. Sam Morton from SKDA Graphics. Sam Morton, how's it going?
Good, man.
Well, welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for making time for it. Before we get into the nitty gritty of what makes SKDA one of the most progressive and interesting motocross brands that's come out in the last 10 years, really sort of changing the landscape and really like changing the game and really upping the quality of graphics across the entire sphere. Let's get to know Sam Morton a little bit. Like, what's your background in the sport? What made you want to enter this space, a rather competitive one? And yeah, you've added to that, my friend.
Yeah, cheers, man. Cheers. I am just another dirt bike fan, dude. I grew up racing bikes, loved it, wanted to lay down fast lap times and have my bike look good, just like you said.
Yeah, that's what it's all about. How, like you want to look pro, go slow. As far as I guess when it comes to me, I do try and drop my lap times here and there, and that's why I call up companies like Racetech to get the bike handling better. But like you grew up in what area of Australia? Who did you look up to? And are there anyone who eventually made it to the big time that you used to trade paint with?
Yeah, sure. So I grew up in Adelaide, which is the capital city of South Australia. It's a small little town here. Not much happens. It's a capital city, but it's a tiny city in relation to anywhere else I've been in the world, which is awesome. I love it that way. It's super calm, and the sports scene's really small here. Everybody knows everybody, which is good and bad, as I'm sure you can imagine. Uh, I grew up racing lower grades. I only started racing when I was 12. Raced C grade through B grade, hit A grade, and when I was about sort of 17, 18. But at that point, realized I was never going to get anything further than that. It was really just a fun hobby that I spent a bit of time in. We didn't really have, like, obviously the Australians that you guys are aware of that are famous, so the Reeds and the Lawrences and these guys. No one like that was ever in round racing when I was, especially not in South Australia. We've had a few quick people come out of our state, but only on a national level. Anything more serious than that. So the best thing to come out of South Australian motocross is nothing that you guys would be aware of, really.
Fair enough. Well, there must be an echo in here or something, or maybe that you're living in this like alternate universe on the other side of the country or the other side of the world that's basically the same as this situation that I'm in. Started racing at 12 years old, never all that good. Eventually got told that I'm probably not going to make it to the pros. And I don't know if you've ever looked at where Winnipeg is on the map, but I'm about 13 hours away from anything significant, even Minneapolis, Minnesota, which is the next closest metropolitan city that is of note. And yeah, the only decent rider that's come out of here in the last little while is Ryder McNabb, although he really has sort of put this area on the map, but that's only in very, very recent history. Um,
Sure.
so for you, the graphic company, you must have at first had sort of a flair for design to begin with, or
Yeah.
even just like you were able to sort of like imagine what you wanted to have a different company make. And sometimes when that happens, if another company isn't able to make what you want to have, or they're not able to produce what your bring your ideas to fruition, you end up going and making it yourself. How does that story unfold for you?
Yeah, pretty similar, man. Like it's almost exactly what you pointed out. I was just a customer of the sport, always put a bit of effort into having the latest gear and looking the coolest because that's what you do in our game,
Yep.
which is the reason that companies like us can exist. Uh, I There was a specific kit that Troy Lee had for my bike that I saw on the net that it just blew me away. I thought it was unreal. And although I wanted to run a very similar look, there were some really specific design changes I had in mind that I wanted to make to the design. I didn't want to just get that kit. I wanted something similar but different. So I went to a graphics company that was around here at the time and took them my ideas, tried to have them recreate it, and they couldn't get it quite the way that I wanted in my head. I was an artistic kid. I always drew heaps of pictures and screwed around on a computer a lot. Like I was quite analytical and just really enjoyed that side of things personally. So when I was having some issues trying to communicate this design over to the company that I was working with, I ended up just jumping onto Publisher, which was the program I was using at the time for everything that I did. I was quite savvy on it. So I went on there and drew up on there using the tools that software has, the adjustments that I wanted to make to the design, handed that over to the graphics company. They then made those adjustments and put it on the bike. So essentially, I laid out the kit again in Publisher and made the changes myself and showed it to them, which they then recreated and printed and gave it to me, right? And again, the intent of that was only ever to run it on my bike, nothing more than that. And within a few weeks of running that at the track, I was really proud of it. I was showing all my friends. I had a couple of friends sort of said, "Hey man, the design looks sweet. Like, do you reckon you could jump on Publisher and design a kit up for me?" Which obviously I did. Took it to the printer company, got them to print it, and before you know it, I made the realization that if I wanted to do a cool little side gig here and turn it into something sweet, I had opportunity pretty much lying in front of me.
Well, there you go. Getting some mileage, doing obviously your own kits as well as some of the kits for your mates. Some of the experience needed to sort of discover that yes, you do have some talent for it, as well as a lot of times when it comes to like getting the mileage to be able to learn how to do something new, you might end up having to do it for free. You might not get paid for it right off the hop, but that experience is what allows you to sort of hone the skills necessary to eventually be able to charge for it. Like that must have been a pretty exciting experience for you in being able to sort of decide, yeah, I might be able to turn this into a business.
Yeah, it was unreal. And I think that like it's really important that people that come up with an idea or a concept, especially in our sport, right? Like it's such a tiny little game to imagine yourself reaching any level of success in time inside this tiny industry is hard, you know, like it's so full. There's so many competitors, rah, 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 even in graphics, but I'm just talking the whole industry. It's such a tight little thing. But I think it's important to note that like when I started out, especially then, obviously it was just a hobby. I never had any bigger intentions for the first 6 months or so. It was really just a bit of a game on the side. Like I was shocking, man. Like my design skills were horrible. The stuff looked terrible in comparison to anything that we do nowadays. I don't think that I would ever have called myself at that time a good designer. But I also don't think the reason people were coming to me was because of good design. It was because of the fact that I provided a caring service. People knew who I was. People were sort of fired up by seeing that I was this young kid having a crack and they wanted to give me an opportunity. And I think that that is relevant and important for people to keep in mind. Like no one, like Nike's first shoe wasn't incredible. You know, like no one just walks in with an amazing product. It takes time to hone, but honestly, sometimes just backing yourself in and giving it a crack and putting in 100%, people will see that you're putting in 100%. And that is sometimes all it takes for someone to give you an opportunity, which can then turn into something if everything falls into place.
Oh, you're preaching to the choir, my friend. This being episode 910 of the BigMx Radio podcast. And I leave the old episodes up there. They're not beautiful. They're not polished, but I leave them there for a lot of reasons. A, because there is still some good information there, but it is also a constant reminder of where I've come from. And yeah, the rawness of literally just having a microphone in the middle of a room, hoping to get like equal volumes out of two people talking in front of a coffee table for my first episode ever in somebody's living room. And 900 episodes later, I've carved out my own little spot within the industry. And at first, like my goals were so small, or I didn't really even have goals. I just wanted to like make cool stuff. And I think that sort of like resonates exactly with what you just said. Give yourself the opportunity to just go out there, work at it, and sort of just put your head down. And when you pop your head back up again, you might see how far you've come.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, exactly right. 100%. And you're never going to know if you don't give it a crack. Like you can't compare yourself to the one industries of the world, which is what I was doing at that stage. Like it's just unrealistic. So don't worry about that. Like give it a crack, get into it. And if you see an opportunity for you to be able to take another step, then take another step, and you don't know where you're going to end up.
For sure. Like as much as you can emulate a One Industries, you don't want to be One Industries. You want to be SKDA graphics and whatever that is to sort of evolve to. So the next question is, how did you get to where you're at right now? How did the company sort of evolve and start to sort of create what it's become? And also, like, what are the sort of the hallmarks of the business, whether it becomes like good customer service, eye-catching graphics, great materials, or is it all those things coming together at once?
Sure, sure. I think that that there's those two questions can relate almost directly in our case. So after a few months of after I started the business, right? So I said it was a hobby, it was unintentional, just having a bit of fun, utilizing some skills and a passion that I had, being art and design and motorbikes and computers, right? Um, I was at a time in my life where I was bouncing between meaningless jobs for some income to pay rent. But I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. I didn't have a career path yet. And that the success and the traction that we started to see, obviously on an extremely small scale, but when we started to, I started to see some level of consistency in what I was doing within the graphics, I decided that, you know what, I reckon this is an opportunity. I think I can turn this into something cool. A few more months with that in mind, starting to build that idea out and putting some emphasis behind it. And there was a stage that I decided to just commit, like completely, 100%, right? So I said, all right, look, this is going to be it. This is it. This is my future. This is what I'm going to do. I can make this into something cool. I can make this into something successful. I'm just going to put 110% into putting everything I have physically into this to make it work. And at that same stage, I decided that, like, I wasn't deciding to give it a go. I in my head completely came to the end solution that this was going to be it. I wasn't going to let it not work. I was going to make this thing into something awesome, and absolutely nothing on the earth was going to stop me doing that. 100% dedication and commitment. And that sort of answers both questions in some way, right? So, like, essentially, that's what has led me to here. Obviously, there's a long form bullshit story about the peaks and troughs and the cool things that happen and the bad things that happened and the problems that I encountered and how I got around them, which are all relevant. But at the end of the day, the reason that I was able to overcome those things, the reason that I was able to push through diversity and the bullshit and everything else that came my way, was because of the fact that I literally decided that absolutely nothing was ever going to stop me reaching the goal that I had, which was to become one of the biggest and best graphics companies in the world, right? And that then leads into the second point. Like, I think that our point of difference now is the fact that, yeah, I do think we have really good customer service. I hear that a lot from our customers. We genuinely care. We want to make your bike look sick. If a customer's not satisfied, we'll do everything we can to solve it. I also think that our perspective on design is quite unique and different and makes us stand out, which is awesome. I love that. I think it's a really cool feature of our company. Product quality is good. All these other things. However, I think that the reason that our company has seen success, is continuing to see that, is continuing to get traction, is continuing to grow, is because of the fact that I am still at the helm and I have this unwavering push of reaching the pinnacle of the sport in our area. And nothing's going to stop me getting there. So every decision that I make, every move that we make, every ad that we put out, every design we do, it goes through my filter of seeking 100% perfection and 100% best result in every single case. And I don't think that that's something that is a quality of every company that we compete with, every company in the world. It's not something that everyone can get, that 100% dedication to making sure that everything goes through the way that it should.
Absolutely. It's perseverance in the face of adversity, and that is a recipe for success, regardless of what you're going after, whether it's a new fitness regime or creating one of the most iconic graphic companies of this modern era. You're working with a lot of teams over here in the States, as well as down under as well. Working with Club Yamaha, as well as Hep Suzuki guys. How do you build those relationships and sort of take over for a team look that has become pretty iconic when the club bikes are out on the track or when the Hep Suzukis go racing by? It's pretty easy to tell what they are.
Yeah, for sure, man. Yeah. And it's tricky because it's really hard to put a finger on exactly what that is. Like I agree that we have a unique style in our design. And I agree that we try and keep things very clean and professional and unique, but it's like I don't know what it is. I don't know what exactly it is that makes our looks different. Like I think that whenever I put my fingers on a design or one of our product designers here put out their fingers on something, it ends up coming out with the flavor of what we do. But I don't know exactly what it is. It's just something that is carrying our company quite well in that area. So I'm stoked about it, but I can't tell you exactly what it is. Um, the relationships with teams are awesome. They're hard work, man. They really are. It's tough to maintain the relationships with these teams, not intentionally on their part. It's just a difficult thing to be involved with, right? They're super demanding. They need a lot of staff. They need it last minute. They have a lot of pressure. They need you to perform for them in order to maintain the level of look that the team has and the service that they require. Like it's hard yakka. It's not a simple thing to do.
Absolutely. And one of the things that you guys, I think, I don't know if you like specialize in or something, but I think that like a product line, the product lines that I think stand out the most for you guys is basically the semi-custom look that like you guys have some baseline graphics that people can sort of build off of to create their own something special. And it's a combination of hard, clean lines. And in a lot of ways, it sort of reminds me of like the way not in a cartoon way, but like the way certain comics are just drawn certain ways. Like if you saw a Charlie Brown uh, cartoon strip, you know exactly what it is before you even like look through the cartoon. You know exactly who drew it, and
Mm.
that's basically the same communication that you guys have through your graphics. It's unmistakable, and like you said, I don't quite know what it is, but it's almost like it's a visual signature that you guys have that you've
Mm.
been able to continue and sort of build off of. How popular are those semi-custom graphic kits? How wild can some people get with the stuff? Obviously, you guys go full custom stuff as well.
Mm.
But that semi-custom look is pretty popular for you.
Yeah, sure. It's a business model that is now adopted by most graphics companies globally. You know, like at the end of the day, because of the way the internet works and the way you can get things rendered up and proofs, etc., instead of having customers come to you with a blank idea every time and building something from scratch, we have, as again, the entire graphics universe now is built out that most companies have a huge online range that people can go on, use as a starting point, and then adjust from there. As you said, semi-custom rather than one-off. It's a much more efficient way to do things. It's obviously a lot less labor intensive for the graphics company, a lot more efficient for the customer, which keeps the costs down. And at the end of the day, companies like ours spend their entire lives coming up with creative and cool concepts and making them as accurate and stunning as physically possible. So rather than starting from scratch every time and coming up with something that sometimes looks cool and sometimes doesn't, we have a full range that we know looks incredible, and we give the customer the opportunity to adjust that. It's just a more efficient way to do things, I think.
Absolutely. I often think of it as like I'm the bricklayer. I'll take care of the bricks. You guys are the designers. I'll let you guys take care of the design work, and things usually work out that way.
Mm.
Like you've worked with, I'm sure, thousands of kits over the years. Are there anyone specifically that sticks out in your mind that when you think of a SKDA graphic that would just like that one hit the mark right on the head? Is there one specific or even like in the last little while it's sort of rounded into form?
Yeah, sure. Yeah. In about 2016, 2017, we released a specific design that we called the Divide series. So it was a really iconic, clean, neat looking design that we made available for all the models. We changed the colors accordingly, of course. And it was super, super, super clean, super basic, and super unique. And no one had really done anything quite like that before, at that stage specifically. So that was, I think, our coming out and becoming really well known for this clean design style. Like before that, our designs were obviously always skewed to have a little bit of flavor that was my own. However, similar sort of stuff to what everyone was doing. I think it was at about that stage that I realized that there was an opportunity to pivot slightly, do something that no one else was doing. And it was such a unique look at that time that it was unmistakable, and no one could do anything similar without it being easily identified as a replica of something that we were doing. So it was a really cool way to put ourselves on the map and completely remove ourselves from the other companies and be like, we're doing something unique and no one else had, which was really, really cool. Like, it gave us the ability to, yeah, stand out like a sore thumb. And it was obviously received really well. Everybody loved it. It started selling like crazy. And I mean, what are we now? 6 years on, 7 years on from that? And it's still quite a popular design that we sell. Most of our designs we refresh, like every quarter we get rid of the 20% of designs we don't sell anymore and add 20% new ones. But that is something that is continuously polling in one of our best-selling kits and continuing to do so, which is awesome. It's cool that we were able to create something that's so timeless within a sport where things change so rapidly, right?
Absolutely, especially when it comes to the design world, things is kind of always evolving. And here's an opportunity for all those currently watching on YouTube or listening on the BigMx Radio podcast network on iTunes or Spotify. I'm going to drop this in right now into the podcast. And if you're listening to this, what you need to do is email Brad Gebhart at bradgebhart88@gmail.com, or leave a comment on the YouTube channel. Plead your case. This is your opportunity to tell me why you guys need a full kit from SKDA Graphics, and we're going to give you a $100 gift certificate to the most convincing story on the YouTube comments, or if you email me, bradgebhart88@gmail.com. We'll giveaway right here in the middle of the podcast. Would love to hear some feedback from people and get them excited to get a brand new look for their motocross bike. How's that sound, Sam?
Yeah, awesome, man. I love it.
Right on, man. So the graphic company is firing all cylinders. You guys can't keep the stuff on the shelves, and then people like me come at you with some custom requests all the time. Aside from that, do you still ride a motorcycle here and there? And what is the local motocross scene like in Australia? Basically feels like a world away.
Yeah. Yeah, I do. Rarely, but I do. I have a daughter now. She's 18 months old. So I obviously
Congrats.
spend a lot of time here at work and a lot of time at home being dad and doing family stuff. However, when I can, once every month or so, I'll get out on the bike. I obviously still have skills from the days I was racing, which means I can go out and have a good time without hurting myself, which is awesome. The I live in South Australia. The riding scene in South Australia isn't fantastic, honestly. It's okay. Like, there's places to go. There's a few tracks that do a really good job, motocross tracks, but there's not heaps of very good trails. There's not heaps of places that you can legally ride. Like, it's not a fantastic spot for that. Victoria, which is the next state over, is unreal. Like, the riding over there, the dirt over there, and the tracks over there are incredible. So when I was a bit younger, I spent a lot of time traveling over there. I actually spent a year living over there as well, and it's a really, really cool place to ride. It kills South Australia in comparison, from, again, in my own opinion.
Fair enough. How often are you riding and just like happen to have you have to dodge kangaroos or a wallaby?
No, none of that, man. There's plenty around, especially where I live. They're everywhere, but they don't come near it. It's just convenient.
Fair enough. That's awesome. Let's talk World Supercross. Obviously the whole gang down there, they're like, basically this was sort of born from the AusX Open. I think you're pretty close with those guys. What were your thoughts on their inaugural season and working with that program moving forward?
Yeah, I think it's really cool, man. Honestly, I'm a big fan. I think it's awesome. Like you said, I've known Adam Bailey, who's one of the owners of the thing, one of the runners of the thing. I've known him for a long time. He actually coached me how to ride when I was a kid. So I've
That's
known him
awesome.
for 20 years or something. And he's a really, really good dude who's working his ass off and doing a good job. I'm impressed by what he's got going on, as is everybody, obviously. I think it's really, really cool. They did a good job with their pilot season. They've obviously had a bunch of practice because of the Oz Open and stuff, like you said. They know what they're doing and they put on a really cool show. The most awesome thing about it for me, from my perspective, is just the ability for more of the world to see the live version of this sport, right? Like, I'm in a massively fortunate position where I've been able to travel to the US now multiple times and see the races over there. And it's unbelievable. Like for a kid like me from Australia who would never have an opportunity to see that sort of stuff, going over there and seeing it in the US was unreal. But the Australian equivalent and the World Supercross equivalent is awesome, man. Like they do an absolutely unreal job. And it means that young kids and even adults like me that just don't have the opportunity to get themselves over to the US now have the ability to see the live version of the sport and see some of the superheroes of our sport and the pro riders and the amazing teams and setups that they have in the flesh, which is just incredible. I think it's awesome. I don't think it needs to ever, be pitted against the AMA Supercross. That thing has its own place. But
Totally.
as a separate series, that means that more of the world gets to see the live version of this thing. I think it's an absolutely beautiful concept, and I really hope they continue kicking goals.
Absolutely. I echo that on a podcast I did recently. It's more racing. It gives us more eyeballs on the sport, more time to talk about and analyze the sport, and more opportunities for, like, you as well as I know, there are only so many spots at the very pinnacle of this sport. So if we can create another series that creates more top spots within the sport and celebrate racing all over the world, that's a good thing. And it creates more content for me to talk about. And like, I always think of it as like, I would love to go see a Premier League soccer game or a rugby game down in Australia, but I'd have to travel great distances to do it. But what if that came to me? What if that could go into my own backyard, and if it was on an annual thing or just came once a year, I wouldn't let that slip through my fingers not one time to be able to see something like that. So for Supercross, I'm sure like people love Supercross in the States, and I love it too. I go to those races and I absolutely love it. It's amazing. But if we could share that with the world and then also add some interesting bits that Adam and his team have brought on, like the drone cams and the music side of things, really turn it into an event, like a full all-encompassing experience and entertainment. Those are all just good things, and I don't think it takes away from American Supercross whatsoever.
Yeah, I completely agree, man. Everything you've said, 100%.
Awesome. When are you riding next? And when are you
I
coming
don't
back
know,
to the
man.
States next? We need to twist the throttle, get some throttle therapy, the two of us, man.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, I don't know. I hope I was over there recently. I came over for A1, spent a few weeks over there. Went to Disneyland and stuff like that with my family, which was cool. And then I had a bunch of people to meet and see over there from the industry. Had a really good time, actually. It was awesome. And I expect to come back again later this year. I'm thinking about coming over right at the end of the year and going to one of these super motocross events. I think that'd be
Okay.
cool to see in the flesh. And the Club MX guys, I've been working with Club for 4 seasons now, 4 seasons, I think. And I've never been to their facility. So I thought, you know what, there's a super motocross event over there. So I might try and tee that up. I might try and come over at that time of year so I can go to the super motocross event. I can go down to club, borrow a bike from one of those guys over there and have a few laps around that facility. I think it'll be a pretty cool experience.
Yeah, I don't think they would think twice about loaning you a bike.
Mm.
Sam Morton here on the BigMx radio podcast, brought to you by SKDA Graphics. Last thing I have for you, Sam, is what's in a name? What's SKDA?
Yeah, sure. Uh, so when I first started the company, I was 18 years old, motocross rider, thought everything was wicked. I called the company Sickness Design. So it was Sickness, right? Because fully sick, obviously. And that was awesome, man. Like it was wicked. I was in a time of my life where that was completely suitable and it hit the demographic, which was kids my age perfectly. However, it didn't take too long for me to realize that in order to reach a wider demographic, I needed a more suitable name to be able to hit the older guys as well as the kids my age. So I needed to change the name. The logo was an S and a K already for the word sickness. So I just changed it to SK Designs because it made it a bit easier to, hit a wider demographic, but it was an easy transition because the logo was already an S and a K. And I named it SK Designs Australia at that stage because of the fact that obviously we were actually not even national at that stage. We were only selling really local stuff, but it was a cool way to add a bit of flex to the name and make us look bigger than we were, right? Which is obviously everyone's aim when they're starting the companies. And that was cool. We ran that for a while, but then when we started hitting the US and we incorporated the company in the US, we named that SK Designs America fittingly. and therefore the abbreviation for both companies is the letters SKDA. So we created like a second persona at that stage, which was SKDA, which was just abbreviating the two companies. We made a logo for it, and that was just received really well. Like obviously SKDA rhymes when you say it, so it's pretty. Although it's four letters, it flows off the tongue pretty easily. The branding was really, really well made. Like it was super professional and clean, really easy to identify from a long distance, super premium, and it just got received, really well. So we just ran with it, man. Like we were like, yeah, this works, and we just stuck with it. Even as you mentioned earlier, like sometimes because of the fact that we're not always talking about these things and on video, people can make their own concept of how to pronounce the name. So sometimes people get it incorrect. But yeah, it's letter by letter, SKDA, and it's been awesome, man. We've had that identity now for I think 6 years, 7 years, something like that. And it's been awesome. We're stoked with it. I'm not leaving it going anywhere.
Fair enough, my friend. Well, Sam, I really appreciate the time today, carving out a better part of a half hour to talk about the brand, talk about some dirt bikes, and get people sort of excited about SKDA graphics, whether they order it internationally and they're ordering it straight from Australia, or if you're here in Canada or the United States, it's coming straight from the States, which is awesome. Is quicker shipping, and you don't have to worry about like a lot of people they think to go order something from SKDA, it's going to come all the way from Australia. The shipping's going to be crazy. Not the case. If I'm not mistaken, you guys distribute out of the like central area in Chicago or something like that?
So to clarify that slightly, so the company is based in Australia. We're based here in South Australia.
Right.
When an order comes through, the order fulfillment, the customer service, the design work, everything happens mainly from here.
Okay.
However, then when an order is ready to be manufactured, like when a kit's ready to be printed, then that is when we do one of a few things, right? At the end of the day, the main manufacturing facility is still here in Australia. We have the equipment to do everything from here. And until recently, 100% of our orders were being manufactured here and shipped to wherever they needed to be. Canada is actually our third biggest region after the US and Australia for customer sales. But shipping's really not that bad, man. So two-part story. We've recently opened up a facility in San Diego where we're going to be shipping a lot of the orders out of, which just means slightly increased speed delivery to the customers. However, there's still a majority of the orders at this stage that are coming out of Australia, and that is something that will continue somewhat for a long time. Shipping from Australia to any address in the US is usually about 4 days. Any address in Canada is usually 5 or 6 days. So it's really like it's not very long anyway, even from here. We don't charge, we do free shipping for customers in the US and Canada over $100. We wear 100% of the import charges and taxes for all orders globally. So at the end of the day, regardless of where it's coming from, it's going to get you quick. You're never going to pay shipping. You're never going to get taxes. We take responsibility for that entirely. We do see a world where eventually we'll have a printing facility based in Canada. We'll have a couple of them in the US, which will increase the speed of delivery for everybody. But even with that aside, the way that it sits currently, even if we do ship your order out of Australia, it's going to get to you fast. You're not going to get copped with crazy charges. It'll come to you as quick or quicker than your local graphics company, regardless.
Unreal, man. So what you're saying is a wallaby hits print, a koala bear packages it, sends it over either on a plane or a boat across the ocean, and then a Canadian grabs it, throws it on a dog sled, goes across the Canadian prairies, and straight to my front door at no extra charge.
Yeah, that's it.
Perfect. That is so awesome. Sam, this was so much fun. I really appreciate you making some time today for the BigMx Radio podcast, man.
Yeah, likewise, man. I appreciate your time. Thanks.
Awesome. Well, let's hang it up right there. This was great.
Cheers, man.